13th April, 1950. Tamil New Year, 2 p.m. Morning observations. Maharshi's diastolic blood pressure climbed up to 46, but the systolic remained stationary at 68, and his pulse is 94, and body temperature appearing normal at 98.4 in its extreme irony, with 22 breaths per minute. Morning darshan ran for half an hour, during which Maharshi's eyes remained closed, and when he occasionally opened them, they looked in front rather than to the left where the devotees were filing past him. His diet consists now of only buttermilk. 10 p.m., owing to the very heavy attendance of visitors from all over the south, nearly 1,500, the evening darshan had to be lengthened to 45 minutes. Many devotees remained till late in the evening to receive the final medical oral report for the day. And at 9:30 p.m., Dr. Krishnamurti, a local physician and a great devotee, walked up to me and said, "My own impression is that there is no immediate danger. Bhagavan has just told the attendants to go to sleep as he himself was going to do. His breathing is not labored, and there is no gasping in evidence." Friday, 14th April, 1950. Maharshi is in a very precarious condition. The whole morning has been spent by devotees in hushed gloom and with bated breath. After evening darshan, the unanimous verdict is that it is positively the last. The master is now propped on large pillows, almost in a sitting posture, the head resting backwards with open mouth, and two attendants briskly fanning him to enable him to breathe freely. The battle for air has thus started. At 7 p.m., oxygen is administered to him for about 5 minutes, but seeing it gave him no relief, he feebly asked that it should be stopped. The situation was tense. About 500 devotees were outside in sad expectation of the solemn last moment. Blood relations, ashram workers, a few old disciples, and some new aspirants went in by turn to have a last sight of him. When the end was known to be approaching, the whole congregation with one voice started chanting the Tamil hymns he had many years ago composed in praise of Lord Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Till it came to 8:47. Many devotees, grief-stricken and beating their breasts, lost control of their feeling and rushed en masse to the small room where the sacred body lay, but police officers immediately cordoned off the area till it was brought out and placed in the center of the big darshan hall in the yoga asana Padmasana for all people to pay their last respects. The news spread like wildfire to the town and the neighboring villages and drew huge crowds. By 9:15 p.m., the crowd grew so thick that it became necessary to give chance to all to pay their homage and pass the body in an orderly manner. A queue was thus formed from 7 to 10, broad, at a quick march pace, until 11:55 p.m., for nearly 3 hours, continuing unabatingly. Around the sofa sat dozens of disciples, some chanting Maharshi's verses and other devotional hymns, but the others remained in silent contemplation. Sandalwood paste and jasmine flowers now cover the body, and incense burns by its side. At about 9 p.m., Monsieur Cartier-Bresson, the French photographer, who has been here for about a fortnight with his wife, related an experience of his to me, saying, "It is a most astonishing experience. I was in the open space in front of my house when my friends drew my attention to the sky, where I saw a vividly luminous shooting star with a luminous tail, unlike any shooting star I had ever seen, coming from the south, moving slowly across the sky and reaching the top of Arunachala, and then it disappeared behind it. Because of its singularity, we all guessed its import and immediately looked at our watches. It was 8:47 p.m., and then raced to the ashram, only to find that our premonition had been only too sadly true. the Master had passed into Maha-Nirvana at that very minute. Several other devotees in the ashram and in the town later told me that they too had seen the telltale meteor. 15th April, 1950. Many devotees kept vigil the whole of last night by the side of the sacred body. Some snatched a few hours' rest and returned early morning. The singing and chanting of Vedas continued throughout, as did the queue of worshippers till 11:30 a.m. this morning, when the body was taken out to the south veranda for puja and abhishekam. Sri Nirajananda Swami, the Sarvadakari, assisted by his son, T.N. Venkataraman, poured over the sacred head dozens of pots of milk, curds, buttermilk, orange juice, mashed bananas, and jackfruits, followed by many bottles of rose water and perfumes of all kinds and sweet-smelling oils. Then enormous garlands of fresh roses and jasmines were placed around the neck and strewn all over the body. The samadhi pit was dug 10.5 by 10.5 feet and 7 feet deep. In its center, the masons isolated a small area of 4.5 by 4.5 feet and surrounded it by a wall built of granite stones and lime and cement. The remaining portion they filled with many cartloads of sand, said to have been brought from the sacred Ganges and Narbada valleys. At 6:30 p.m., the body, which by then had received the homage of not less than 40,000 people, was carried in a decorated palanquin reserved for the deity of the temple to the Samadhi shrine. Here it was placed in the same yoga asana into a bag made of the finest khadar, which was then filled with pure camphor and lowered into the small area reserved for it. Then the pit was filled to the brim with camphor, salt, and sacred ashes to protect the body from worms and rapid disintegration, and closed with masonry work. The crowd was so intense that 20 policemen were hardly sufficient to control it. Mr. Kaikobad, a Parsi devotee of the Maharshi, last night happened to be on the terrace of his house in Madras when he too saw the meteor, in which Kardia Brasen and others referred to last night, and intuitively associated it with the Maha-Nirvana of the Master. And without waiting for the morning, he immediately hired a taxi and came at top speed. Miss Pettit, who was sitting on the balcony of her house in Bombay, about 1,000 miles away, also saw the shooting star at that fateful minute, at once guessed its meaning, and wrote to a friend of hers in Benares that the Maharshi had passed away. 16th April, 1950. All the English and Tamil papers which arrived this morning from Madras gave wide publicity and banner headlines to the passing of the Maharshi. They also referred to the meteor which had been seen in the sky all over the state of Madras, hundreds of thousands of square miles at 8:47 on the night of April 14th, by a huge amount of people in different places, and reported to the press. These eyewitnesses had been struck by its peculiar look and behavior, which led them to ascribe the strange phenomena to the passing of a great spiritual soul. Such a mass of evidence speaks for itself, if evidence need be.